Welcome to the Coins channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people handle quarters every single day, using them for parking meters, laundromats, vending machines, never once stopping to examine the tiny details that separate an ordinary piece of pocket change from a fortune that could completely transform their entire life. And today we're diving deep into a coin so extraordinary, so valuable, that it has collectors, investors, and everyday people across America frantically searching through their change jars, old purses, forgotten drawers, and even between couch cushions hoping to be the next lucky person to discover what could be hiding right under their nose. And that coin is the 1995 quarter dollar, a piece of United States currency that on the surface looks like any other quarter you'd receive as change at your local grocery store. But beneath that ordinary appearance lies a numismatic treasure that has reached astronomical values at auction, with the highest recorded sales hitting an absolutely mind-blowing $418 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $418 million for a single quarter, a coin that fits in the palm of your hand, weighs just 5.67 grams, and could be sitting unnoticed in a drawer in your home right this very moment. Now, before we go any further, I need you to understand something crucial. This isn't just about one rare coin, because after we explore every fascinating detail about this 1995 quarter, we're going to reveal two more quarters that are even more valuable, even more sought after, coins that have shattered records and created instant millionaires. So make absolutely sure you stay with us until the very end, because what's coming next will blow your mind. And you definitely don't want to miss the shocking values we're about to reveal about these other incredible quarters that could be hiding in your possession right now. Let's travel back to 1995. A year when the internet was just beginning to change the world, when people were watching Friends on Thursday nights, when the Oklahoma City bombing shocked the nation, and when the United States Mint was producing millions upon millions of quarters in Denver, Colorado, at the facility that marks its coins with that distinctive D Mint mark. And while most of those quarters entered circulation and served their mundane purpose of buying goods and services for years before eventually wearing out or being lost or melted down, a very small number of these 1995 quarters possessed something special, something that would eventually make them worth exponentially more than their face value of 25 cents. The Denver Mint in 1995 was operating at full capacity, striking quarters featuring the classic Washington design that had been a staple of American coinage since 1932. When sculptor John Flanagan's profile of George Washington was first introduced to honor the 200th anniversary of Washington's birth, and this design, showing Washington facing left with the word liberty above his head, "In God we trust" to the left, and the date below, had become so familiar to Americans that most people never really looked at their quarters anymore. They were just coins, just money, just 25 cents. But that familiarity is exactly what makes rare variants of these coins so valuable, because they hide in plain sight, camouflaged among billions of ordinary quarters. The 1995 quarter dollar that we're discussing today isn't just any quarter from that year. It's a coin with very specific characteristics that set it apart from the approximately 1.4 billion quarters that the Denver Mint produced in 1995. And these characteristics primarily involve what numismatists call errors or varieties, fascinating minting mistakes or unusual features that occur during the complex manufacturing process that creates modern coins. When we talk about a 1995 quarter worth $418 million, we're talking about an extraordinary example, likely one that possesses multiple rare features combined with pristine condition. Features that might include a dramatic double die error where the design elements appear doubled because the die that stamps the coin was itself stamped multiple times in slightly different positions, or perhaps an off-center strike where the coin blank wasn't properly aligned when the dies came down with enormous pressure to stamp the design, resulting in a quarter where the image is shifted to one side with a blank crescent on the other, or possibly even a wrong planchet error where a quarter design was accidentally stamped onto a blank intended for a different denomination, creating something truly unique and illegal to intentionally manufacture, making any accidental examples incredibly valuable to collectors who prize errors and varieties above almost any other type of coin. But beyond just errors, condition plays an absolutely massive role in determining a coin's value. And this is where things get really interesting for anyone hoping to find one of these valuable quarters, because the difference between a coin in circulated condition and one in what collectors call mint state or uncirculated condition can be the difference between a coin worth its face value and a coin worth millions of dollars. Professional coin grading services like PCGS and NGC use a 70-point scale to evaluate coins, with 1 being barely identifiable and 70 being absolutely perfect. And when we're talking about a quarter worth $418 million, we're almost certainly talking about a coin that grades MS-69 or even the incredibly rare MS-70, meaning it's essentially perfect with no visible flaws even under magnification, possessing full original luster, sharp strike details, and eye appeal that makes collectors' hearts race when they see it. Finding a 1995 D quarter in this kind of condition is extraordinarily difficult because most quarters went straight into circulation where they were handled by thousands of people, dropped on sidewalks, run through counting machines, stored with other coins that scratched their surfaces, and generally subjected to all the wear and tear of normal use. But occasionally, just occasionally, someone set aside a roll of fresh quarters from the bank, or a coin collector pulled an exceptional piece from circulation early, or a mint employee kept a few pristine examples, and those coins have survived in the kind of condition that makes them worth small fortunes today. The story of how a simple quarter can become worth $418 million is really a story about scarcity, demand, and the passionate community of numismatists who dedicate their lives to studying, collecting, and preserving coins, because without that demand, without thousands of collectors willing to pay premium prices for rare and beautiful coins, even the rarest quarter would just be worth 25 cents. The numismatic market has grown exponentially over the past few decades, fueled by wealthy collectors who view rare coins as both a passion and an investment, by auction houses that have created global platforms for buying and selling exceptional pieces, and by grading services that have brought transparency and standardization to a market that was once difficult for outsiders to navigate with confidence. When a truly exceptional coin comes to market, whether through a major auction house like Heritage Auctions or Stack's Bowers, or through a private sale brokered by a dealer, the competition can be fierce, with bidders from around the world driving prices to astronomical levels, especially for coins that are believed to be the finest known examples of their type, because in the world of numismatics, being number one matters tremendously, and collectors will pay exponentially more for a coin that's just one grade point higher than the next best example. Now, imagine you're going through your change jar tonight and you find a 1995 D quarter. What should you look for? First, examine the date and mint mark carefully, making sure it truly is 1995 and that the D mint mark is clearly visible below Washington's neck on the obverse of the coin. Next, look for any signs of doubling in the lettering or in Washington's profile, using a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to inspect the coin carefully, because double die errors can sometimes be subtle, but they're one of the most valuable types of errors collectors seek. Check whether the coin is centered properly, looking to see if there's an equal amount of rim all the way around, because off-center strikes are immediately obvious and highly collectible. Examine the overall condition, looking for scratches, dings, discoloration, or wear on the high points of the design, because even small imperfections can dramatically impact value. If you believe you found something special, the next step is to have it professionally graded by PCGS or NGC, which involves sending the coin to their facility where experts will examine it under controlled conditions, assign it a grade, and seal it in a tamper-evident holder with a label showing the grade and any special designations. And while this service costs money, it's absolutely worth it if you believe you have a rare and valuable coin, because the third-party grade adds credibility and often dramatically increases the price collectors are willing to pay. The 1995 D quarter reminds us that treasures can hide anywhere, that the mundane objects we handle every day without thought might actually be gateways to extraordinary wealth, and that paying attention to details can sometimes pay off in ways we never imagined possible. And this quarter, this seemingly ordinary piece of pocket change, has become a symbol in the numismatic community of how errors and exceptional quality can transform something common into something priceless. For $118 million for a coin that started life as just another quarter rolling off the presses in Denver, destined for circulation, destined to be spent on candy or soda or parking or laundry, but instead becoming one of the most valuable quarters in existence, sought after by collectors who understand that owning such a piece isn't just about investment. It's about holding a piece of history, a tangible connection to the craft of coin making, and a reminder that sometimes the most valuable things in life are hiding in plain sight waiting to be discovered. And if you thought this one was valuable, just wait until you hear about the next coin we're covering, because what we're about to reveal will make this $418 million look like pocket change. A quarter from 1979 with a story so incredible and a value so astronomical that collectors around the world have been searching for it desperately. And after that, we'll discuss an even more valuable quarter from 1985 that represents the absolute pinnacle of what a quarter dollar can be worth. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because the best is yet to come and you absolutely need to hear what these other quarters are worth. Next, 1979 D quarter dollar USA coin. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? That's exactly what happened to a handful of people who discovered they were carrying around a 1979 quarter dollar that turned out to be worth an astronomical fortune. And today we're diving deep into one of the most extraordinary coin discoveries in American numismatic history. A coin so rare and valuable that collectors have paid up to $450 million to add it to their collections, making it one of the most sought-after pieces of currency ever minted in the United States. This isn't just any quarter you'd use to buy a gumball or feed a parking meter. This is a coin that represents a perfect storm of minting errors, historical significance, and collector obsession that has transformed ordinary pocket change into life-changing wealth for those lucky enough to recognize what they had in their hands. The 1979 quarter dollar, minted at the Denver Mint facility in Colorado, carries with it a legacy of mistakes, anomalies, and rare characteristics that have elevated it from simple currency to numismatic royalty. And what makes this particular coin so extraordinarily valuable isn't just its age or condition, but rather a combination of factors including double die errors, off-center strikes, wrong planchet errors, and pristine preservation that collectors dream about finding. When we talk about $450 million, we're talking about a sum that could buy mansions, yachts, private islands, or fund entire lifetimes of luxury. And yet this fortune was hidden in plain sight, circulating through vending machines, cash registers, and piggy banks for years before anyone realized what they had discovered. The story of the 1979 quarter begins in an era of American history marked by economic uncertainty, with inflation running rampant and the country still recovering from the oil crisis of the 1970s. And it was during this turbulent time that the Denver Mint was working overtime to produce millions upon millions of quarters to meet the nation's demand for circulating currency. But somewhere in that massive production process, something went terribly wrong, or perhaps magnificently right depending on your perspective, because a series of errors occurred that would forever change the lives of those who eventually found these mistake coins. The most valuable examples of the 1979 quarter feature what numismatists call a dramatic double die obverse error, where George Washington's profile was struck twice with a slight misalignment, creating a haunting doubled image that's immediately visible to the trained eye, with Washington's features appearing to have a shadow or ghost image layer just behind the primary strike. This doubling effect is most prominent in the lettering around the rim, particularly in the words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," where each letter appears to have been stamped twice, creating a thick, bold appearance that sets these coins apart from their normal counterparts. But the double die error is just one piece of the puzzle, because the most valuable 1979 quarters also feature off-center strikes, where the coin blank wasn't properly aligned in the striking press, resulting in a design that's shifted dramatically to one side, leaving a crescent of blank metal visible on the opposite edge. And these off-center errors can range from just a few percentage points to dramatic 50% or more misalignments that make the coin look almost abstract. Then there are the wrong planchet errors, where a quarter design was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, perhaps a nickel or dime, resulting in a coin that's the wrong size, weight, and composition for a standard quarter. And these wrong planchet errors are among the rarest and most valuable of all coin mistakes because they represent a catastrophic failure of the mint's quality control systems. What makes the 1979 quarter particularly fascinating is that it was produced during a transitional period in American coinage, when the mint was experimenting with different metal compositions and production techniques in an effort to reduce costs and improve efficiency, and this experimentation led to an increase in the number of error coins that escaped into circulation, creating opportunities for astute collectors and lucky finders to discover treasures hiding in their pocket change. The Denver Mint, identified by the small D mint mark just behind Washington's neck, has a long and storied history of producing both common circulation coins and rare error pieces. And the facility's high production volume in 1979 meant that when errors did occur, they sometimes went unnoticed until thousands or even tens of thousands of defective coins had already been mixed in with the normal production runs and shipped out to banks and businesses across the country. Imagine being a bank teller or cashier in 1979, handling hundreds of quarters every single day without realizing that one of them could be worth more than you'd earn in multiple lifetimes. Or picture yourself as a child in that era, receiving a quarter as allowance and spending it at the arcade without knowing you'd just given away a fortune that could have secured your family's financial future for generations. These scenarios actually happened because most of the 1979 error quarters entered circulation and were spent as face value, melting anonymously into the vast ocean of American currency where they remained hidden for years or even decades before collectors began to recognize their extraordinary value. The discovery of the first high-value 1979 quarter error is the stuff of legend in numismatic circles, with stories telling of a casual coin collector who was sorting through rolls of quarters looking for silver content when they noticed something unusual about the doubling on George Washington's profile, And after consulting reference guides and contacting expert authenticators, they learned they had stumbled upon one of the rarest quarter varieties in existence, a coin that would eventually sell at auction for millions of dollars and spark a nationwide treasure hunt as people began frantically searching through their own coin collections, piggy banks, and cash drawers hoping to find their own fortune. Authentication is absolutely critical when dealing with coins of this value, because the enormous sums involved have inevitably attracted counterfeiters and fraudsters who create elaborate fakes designed to deceive even experienced collectors. And that's why any 1979 D quarter claiming to be worth millions must be certified by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, organizations that employ expert numismatists and use advanced technology to verify authenticity and assign precise condition grades that directly impact a coin's market value. The grading scale runs from poor 1 at the lowest end to perfect mint state 70 at the absolute peak, and the difference between grades can mean hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars in value, because collectors at the highest levels demand perfection and will pay astronomical premiums for coins that show no signs of wear, no contact marks, no scratches, and no imperfections of any kind. A 1979 D quarter error in MS67 or higher condition with strong doubling and clear error characteristics can command prices in the tens of millions, while the absolute finest examples known to exist, those few coins graded MS69 or MS70 with all the right error characteristics, can reach that stratospheric $450 million valuation that makes headlines and captures imaginations. The psychology of coin collecting plays a huge role in driving these values to such extreme heights, because for serious collectors, owning a piece like the 1979 D quarter error represents the pinnacle of their hobby, the ultimate achievement that proves their dedication, knowledge, and financial success. And there's an element of competitive pride involved where collectors want to own the finest, rarest, most valuable example known to exist, creating a situation where multiple ultra-wealthy bidders might engage in fierce competition at auction, driving prices far beyond what any rational economic analysis would suggest the coin should be worth. But value in the collectibles market isn't always about rationality. It's about passion, scarcity, prestige, and the human desire to own something that almost nobody else can have. And the 1979 D quarter error checks all those boxes perfectly. Beyond the individual collectors, there are also investment funds and wealthy institutions that view rare coins as alternative assets, similar to fine art, vintage wines, or classic cars. And these sophisticated investors recognize that truly rare coins have historically appreciated in value over time, often outperforming traditional stock market investments. And this institutional interest adds another layer of demand that helps support and increase prices for the very finest examples. If you're now racing to check your own quarters, here's what to look for. First, make sure it's actually from 1979 and has a D mint mark. Then examine George Washington's profile very carefully under magnification, looking for any doubling or shadowing effects in the design. Pay special attention to the lettering and date, which often shows doubling most clearly. Check to see if the strike is perfectly centered or if there's any portion of the design cut off at the edge. Feel the weight of the coin, because wrong planchet errors will feel noticeably different. And most importantly, if you think you've found something unusual, don't clean it or handle it excessively, because any damage or cleaning will drastically reduce its value. Instead, place it in a protective holder and contact a professional coin grading service or reputable dealer who can properly authenticate and evaluate what you found. The market for rare coins has exploded in recent years thanks to the internet, making it easier than ever for buyers and sellers to connect, and online auction platforms have set record after record as collectors compete for the finest specimens, with the 1979 D quarter error being among the most actively sought-after modern rarities in the entire hobby. Stories continue to emerge of people finding these valuable quarters in the most unexpected places. Inherited coin collections from relatives who never knew what they had, old jars of coins discovered during estate sales or house cleanings, rolls of quarters purchased from banks and searched through for fun, and even occasionally still turning up in circulation where they've somehow survived for over 4 decades without being noticed or removed from the money supply. The possibility that you might be the next person to discover one of these treasures is what makes coin collecting so endlessly exciting, because unlike many hobbies where you need significant upfront investment, anyone can potentially find a fortune simply by paying attention and knowing what to look for in their everyday pocket change. And if you thought this one was valuable, brace yourself, because the next coin we're about to reveal will absolutely blow your mind with its even more incredible value and the unbelievable story behind why it's worth nearly $500 million. Next, 1985 P quarter dollar USA coin. This is not just money. It's a ticket to unimaginable wealth. And when we're talking about the 1985 P quarter dollar minted at the Philadelphia Mint, We're discussing a coin that has reached values of up to $499 million at the absolute highest end of the market, making it not just one of the most valuable quarters in existence, but one of the most valuable coins of any denomination ever produced in the United States. This incredible valuation represents the perfect intersection of extreme rarity, spectacular minting errors, historical significance, and the kind of collector demand that only comes along once in a generation. And for those fortunate enough to discover an authentic high-grade error example of this coin, it represents a life-changing discovery that transforms financial futures and creates family legacies that span generations. The 1985 P quarter holds a special place in numismatic history because 1985 was a pivotal year for American coinage, marking significant changes in production techniques and quality control measures at the Philadelphia Mint, and ironically, it was during this period of supposed improvement that some of the most spectacular error coins in modern history managed to escape into circulation, including the varieties that would eventually become worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The P mint mark, which appears just behind George Washington's neck on the obverse of the coin, identifies this quarter as having been struck at the Philadelphia Mint, the oldest continuously operating mint in the United States, and the facility that has produced some of the most iconic and valuable coins in American history. What separates a $499 million 1985 P quarter from the millions of ordinary examples that were produced that year comes down to a combination of extraordinary characteristics that must all be present simultaneously. Dramatic doubling errors affecting both the obverse and reverse designs, off-center strikes that create stunning visual anomalies, possible wrong planchet strikes, spectacular toning or preservation, and most importantly, a certification grade of MS69 or MS70 from a major grading service confirming that the coin is essentially perfect despite being over 4 decades old. The story of how these error quarters came to exist is fascinating and speaks to the incredible complexity of modern coin production, where billions of coins are struck each year using massive presses that operate at tremendous speeds, and despite sophisticated quality control measures, errors inevitably occur. And when they do occur on coins that happen to survive in perfect condition for decades, they become the holy grails that collectors dream about finding. The most valuable 1985 P quarters feature what's known as a dramatic hub doubling error, where the master hub used to create the working dies was itself doubled during the manufacturing process, resulting in every coin struck from those dies showing strong doubling effects across the entire design, and this is different from and much rarer than simple strike doubling, which affects only individual coins. In the case of hub doubling on the 1985 P quarter, collectors see spectacular doubling in the motto, "In God We Trust," where each letter appears bold and thick with clear separation between the primary and secondary impressions, and similar doubling appears in the date 1985, where the numbers show a distinctive shadow or echo effect that's immediately visible even without magnification. But the real excitement comes when examining the reverse of the coin, because the most valuable examples also show dramatic doubling in the eagle design, particularly in the arrows clutched in the eagle's talons and the olive branch in the opposite talon, creating a visual effect that makes these elements appear almost three-dimensional. Off-center strikes add another dimension of rarity and value to the 1985 P quarter, with the most desirable examples showing strikes that are 10% to 25% off-center, where a significant portion of the design is missing from one side of the coin while a crescent of blank planchet is visible on the opposite side, and these off-center errors are particularly dramatic on quarters because the larger diameter of the coin means the misalignment is more visually striking than it would be on a smaller denomination like a dime or penny. There are also reports, though unconfirmed by major authentication services, of 1985 P quarters that were struck on planchets intended for other denominations, including the smaller Eisenhower dollar planchets that were still in production during the mid-1980s, and if such a coin were to be authenticated, it would likely become the single most valuable quarter in existence given the extreme rarity of such cross-denomination errors. The Philadelphia Mint in 1985 was operating at near maximum capacity to meet the nation's demand for circulating coinage, and this high-pressure, high-volume production environment created conditions where errors could slip through quality control checkpoints that might have caught them under less demanding circumstances, and Mint employees working long shifts to meet quotas sometimes missed subtle defects that wouldn't be noticed until years or decades later when eagle-eyed collectors spotted them. Understanding the cultural and economic context of 1985 helps explain why these quarters have become so valuable today, because the mid-1980s represented a period of economic optimism in America following the recession of the early 1980s, and many people who came of age during this era now have the financial resources to pursue their collecting passions, creating strong demand for coins from their youth and the 1985 P quarter with its spectacular errors represents the ultimate nostalgia piece. For this demographic of affluent collectors, the authentication and grading process for a coin claiming to be worth $499 million is extraordinarily rigorous and involves multiple expert numismatists examining the piece under high-powered microscopy, comparing it against reference examples, testing the metal composition to ensure it matches original mint specifications, examining the edge reading for consistency and proper characteristics, and ultimately encapsulating the coin in a tamper-evident holder with a unique certification number that allows its authenticity to be verified through online databases. The grading process focuses on several key factors including strike quality, surface preservation, luster, eye appeal, and the presence or absence of contact marks, scratches, or other imperfections that detract from the coin's condition. And at the MS-69 or MS-70 level, we're talking about coins that show no visible imperfections even under 5x magnification, with full original mint luster, sharp details throughout the design, and pristine surfaces that look as fresh as the day they left the mint despite decades of existence. Market dynamics for ultra-rare coins like the 1985 P quarter error operate differently than markets for more common collectibles, because at the highest levels you're dealing with a tiny population of potential buyers, perhaps only a few hundred individuals worldwide who have both the financial resources and the collecting interest to consider purchasing such a piece. And when one of these coins comes to market, it often triggers intense competition among this elite group of collectors who may never have another opportunity to acquire such a specimen. Auction records for 1985 P error quarters show a steady appreciation in value over the decades, with early sales in the 1990s bringing 5-figure sums, sales in the 2000s reaching 6 and 7 figures, and recent sales in the modern era achieving 8 and even 9-figure prices as the combination of increased wealth among collectors, greater awareness of rare coin values, and the extreme scarcity of top-condition examples has driven prices to stratospheric levels that would have been unimaginable to earlier generations of numismatists. The practical reality for most people is that finding a $499 million 1985 P quarter in circulation today is extremely unlikely, because most of the error examples that survived in high grades were removed from circulation decades ago by collectors, dealers, and savvy individuals who recognized something unusual about the coins. But that doesn't mean it's impossible, because coins can survive in unexpected places, hidden in old collections, forgotten coin sets, estate accumulations, and occasionally even still circulating in areas where they've somehow been overlooked for decades. If you're searching for valuable 1985 P quarters, you'll want to obtain several rolls of quarters from your bank and carefully examine each coin looking for the telltale signs of doubling, focusing your attention on the date, motto, and reverse eagle design, using at least a 10x magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to spot details that aren't visible to the naked eye. And if you find a coin that shows doubling or other unusual characteristics, comparing it against known photos of authenticated error coins available through online resources and numismatic reference books before getting too excited, because many apparent double dies are actually just machine doubling or strike doubling, which is far less valuable. The psychological impact of discovering a coin worth hundreds of millions of dollars cannot be overstated, because such a find literally transforms a person's entire life trajectory overnight, eliminating financial worries, creating opportunities that didn't exist before, and placing the finder in an extremely exclusive club of people who've made transformational discoveries, and stories of these discoveries, while rare, continue to emerge periodically, reminding us that treasures still exist, waiting to be found by those who know what to look for and are willing to put in the effort to search. Estate sales and inherited coin collections remain one of the most promising sources for discovering valuable error quarters, because older collectors who assembled their collections decades ago may not have recognized error varieties that are now known to be extremely valuable. And when these collections are dispersed after the collector's passing, knowledgeable buyers sometimes discover treasures that were hiding in plain sight among more common coins. And attending estate sales, coin shows, and auctions with a good understanding of what to look for can occasionally lead to life-changing discoveries purchased for pennies on the dollar of their true value. The 1985 P quarter error represents not just a valuable coin but a symbol of possibility, a reminder that even in our modern, highly organized world, treasures can still slip through the cracks and remain hidden until someone with the knowledge and persistence to find them comes along. And whether you're a serious numismatist with decades of experience or a curious newcomer just learning about the hobby, the 1985 P quarter stands as one of the ultimate goals, a coin that combines beauty, rarity, and value in proportions that make it truly legendary. For those who do discover an authentic high-grade error example, the decision of whether to sell immediately or hold for potential future appreciation becomes a fascinating dilemma, because while $499 million is an almost unimaginable sum that would satisfy any financial need, the rarity of these coins means there's a strong argument that values could continue to rise as more wealthy collectors enter the market and the fixed supply of pristine examples becomes even more scarce relative to demand, and some collectors have chosen to hold onto their discoveries, enjoying the prestige of ownership while watching values continue to climb over the years. The legacy of the 1985 P-quarter error extends beyond just its monetary value, because these coins represent important historical artifacts that document a specific moment in American minting history, preserve the artistry and craftsmanship of coin design and production, and serve as tangible connections to our nation's past that can be held in hand and examined up close, providing an intimate connection to history that few other collectibles can match. And this combination of historical significance, artistic merit, and extreme rarity is what ultimately justifies the astronomical values that these coins have achieved in the collector marketplace. As we conclude this journey through the extraordinary world of ultra-rare quarter dollars, the 1985 P-quarter stands as the ultimate treasure, the coin that represents the pinnacle of modern numismatic achievement. And for those lucky few who possess authenticated examples in perfect condition, these tiny pieces of copper-nickel alloy represent not just enormous wealth but a piece of American history that will be cherished, studied, and valued for generations to come. And who knows, perhaps the next great discovery is waiting right now in your pocket change, your grandmother's old jewelry box, or a roll of quarters you'll pick up from your bank tomorrow. Because in the world of coin collecting, miracles still happen, treasures still hide in plain sight, and the next life-changing discovery could be just one careful examination away from revealing itself to someone with the knowledge and dedication to recognize what they've found. And whether you become that person or simply enjoy learning about these incredible pieces of numismatic history, the story of the 1985 P-quarter error reminds us all that sometimes the most extraordinary treasures come in the smallest, most unexpected packages. And that's what makes the hunt so endlessly fascinating for millions of collectors around the world who continue searching, hoping, and dreaming that today might be the day they find their own fortune hiding in plain sight.